Two people, same $120,000 salary, same city, same cost of living. One of them could handle a $1,000 car repair tomorrow without thinking twice. The other would have to put it on a credit card at over 20% interest and hope nothing else breaks this month. Nationally, 51% of six-figure earners are living paycheck to paycheck. And depending on which 2026 survey you check, somewhere between 43 and 59% of all Americans couldn't cover a $1,000 surprise expense at all. The gap between those two people making the exact same salary has nothing to do with income. Let's find out what it actually comes down to. My name is Joey, and on this channel, I want to teach you how to save, invest, use, and grow your money so you can have more freedom and retire earlier without depending on the government. Subscribe to the channel and like this video.
The numbers here are worse than most people assume, and they're not improving. A 2026 U.S. News survey found 43% of Americans couldn't pay for a $1,000 emergency out of savings. Bankrate's 2026 report put the number even higher, and a separate report found 59% couldn't cover it without going into debt at all. A third of Americans don't have enough saved to cover even one full month of living expenses. And among the people who do have an emergency fund, the median balance has been cut roughly in half from last year, down to around $5,000. Here's the part that should really land for this audience. Income barely moves the needle. Roughly 51% of people earning six figures report living paycheck to paycheck, up sharply from the year before. That's not a low-income problem wearing a high-income disguise. It's a structural one. Lifestyle expenses tend to expand to match income almost exactly. The same instinct behind every raise quietly disappearing into a bigger apartment or a nicer car. When there's no fixed, non-negotiable emergency savings line in the budget, there's no natural floor stopping that expansion, so the fund never gets built, regardless of what's coming in. And this isn't a one-year blip. That drop in median balance means a lot of these are people who already had a cushion, watching it shrink under inflation and everyday costs, probably without ever consciously deciding to spend it down. Nobody sits down and decides, I'm going to stop being prepared for emergencies this year. It happens one small withdrawal, one skipped transfer at a time, which is exactly why it needs a system, not just good intentions.
Let's run what actually happens to these two people mathematically over time. Person 1 has no emergency fund. Their $1,000 car repair goes on a credit card at the national average rate of about 21.5%. Paid off over 12 months, that single emergency costs about $120 in pure interest, money that buys nothing, fixes nothing, builds nothing. If that pattern repeats just once a year, which is realistic for anyone without a cushion, that's roughly $1,200 in interest paid over 10 years. And at the end of it, they still have $0 saved. They're exactly where they started, just $1,200 poorer. Person 2 builds a $1,000 emergency fund once in a high-yield savings account earning around 4.5% and never has to finance an emergency on a card again. Take that same $120 a year, the interest person 1 keeps paying, and instead invest it at a historical market average of 7%. After 10 years, it's grown to roughly $1,660. Add it up, and the real difference between these two people isn't $1,000. It's closer to $2,850 over a decade for handling the exact same emergencies at the exact same income. The fund itself isn't the expensive part. The absence of it is.
Stretch that same comparison to 20 years instead of 10, and it stops being a rounding error and starts being a real financial decision. Person 1 has paid roughly $2,400 in avoidable interest and still owns nothing to show for it. Person 2 has turned that same $120 a year into close to $5,000 through compounding, on top of still holding the original $1,000 fund, untouched, doing its actual job. Same salary both times. The only variable that moved was whether $1,000 existed in the right place before it was needed. Now, you might be thinking, I make good money, I could always just figure it out if something happened. That belief is exactly why the fund never gets built. It's a plan that only works until two things go wrong in the same month, which happens to almost everyone eventually. This comes down to present bias. A nicer dinner tonight feels real. An emergency that might not even happen feels abstract. And the brain consistently overweights the certain immediate reward over the uncertain future cost. There's also no natural stopping point without a specific target. Most people save whatever's left at the end of the month, and lifestyle creep makes sure that number stays close to zero no matter how much comes in.
And income creates a specific false confidence here. A six-figure salary feels like its own emergency fund, right up until the emergency actually happens, and the money's already spoken for. It's worth asking yourself directly, when's the last time an unexpected $1,000 expense showed up, and you weren't a little relieved it happened this month and not last month when things were tighter? If that timing has ever mattered to you, that's the tell that the fund was never actually there. You were just getting lucky about when the bill landed. First, open a savings account that's physically separate from your checking account. Different bank if possible. Money that's one tap away gets spent. Money that takes an extra step to reach usually doesn't. Second, pick a specific short timeline instead of a vague goal. To hit $1,000 in 12 weeks, that's $84 a week. Automated. Gone before you ever see it in your checking balance. A defined number with a defined date behaves completely differently than an open-ended, I should probably save more. Third, treat the transfer like a bill, not a leftover. It comes out the same day your paycheck lands, before rent, before subscriptions, before anything else gets a chance to claim it.
Finally, once you hit $1,000, don't stop. Immediately raise the target to 1 month of expenses, then 3 to 6 months. And if you ever have to use the fund, refill it before resuming any other financial goal. The fund only protects you if it actually exists when the emergency shows up. One more thing worth saying plainly. Building this fund isn't a step you graduate out of once your income crosses 6 figures. It's infrastructure. Every other goal on this channel, investing, index funds, the crossover point, assumes you're not one flat tire away from selling off assets or going into debt to stay afloat. Skip this step and every other number in your plan gets shakier than it looks on paper. If you don't know your own crossover point yet, the exact number where your investments cover your expenses for good, that's actually the next worksheet I'd point you to. I built a short breakdown called Find Your Crossover Point that walks you through calculating your real number, step by step, for about the price of a coffee. Links in the description and pinned comment.
A $1,000 emergency fund isn't a beginner move you graduate out of once you're earning well. It's the one piece of the plan that decides whether every emergency after this one costs you $120 in interest or zero. Subscribe to the channel. I break down the real math behind the financial habits that actually separate people at every income level. Next video, the exact freedom number that matters far more than any salary figure. I'll see you there.